for science myself. All right, so I don't want to lose that compliment because I really feel like the music lesson, the musical piece just before, about community, about one voice, two voice, three voices. This is the voice of all of us, was a beautiful summation of what I hope to communicate today by looking at the Bible reading. So I just want to appreciate yet again, when you can't preach, sing or something, or when all else fails, use music, because it really did speak, I hope, to your heart as it spoke to mine. I felt more put together listening to the harmonies and also into the unison of the voices, and I hope you felt that way too. So I want to talk today. There's my I don't usually title my sermons, or often don't, because I don't have that gift. I envy my pastor friends who come up with clever things, and then they put them on the signboards outside their church, and then they go viral on Twitter. I don't have that gift. But I did hear a phrase 2 or 3 weeks ago, that has stuck in my mind that I really wanted to look at a little bit this morning. And the phrase is a community of communities. And it came, I wanted to credit Ken with it, but he modestly says it arose somehow more organically. But we were having a retreat day a few weeks back here, led by Reverend Terry Eckelbarger, and the purpose of it was for us to articulate and then agree upon statements of mission, values, what's the other one? Mission, values, vision. Thank you. I couldn't quite remember, and we spent 6 hours, led ably by Reverend Terry, and a couple things became clear as we tried to articulate what do we want to put in our new bylaws that talk about our mission, our values, and our vision. And part of it, what was revealed, is that it's difficult for this group of people of strong opinions to come to consensus ultimately about something. That's a strength and also can be a challenge for us. I've spent a couple of hours debriefing the day with Reverend Terry because we didn't end up agreeing on one statement after all that work. And I reminded her, I remind myself, I remind all of us, that process is the point sometimes. That it was intrinsically valuable for a third of our congregation, fully a third, to spend an entire day together reflecting and listening on why are we here and who do we hope to be next and what's most important to us. So even though it didn't result in a product, I believe the process was valuable, and what surfaced in that was people were saying, Congregational Church of the Peninsula means many things, but this is the phrase, a community of communities. And I liked that because it accurately describes, I think, who we are. What do we do? We were trying that day to articulate something that brings into alignment our hopes, our dreams, our values with our actions, so that it's one unitary thing. In the Bible, when God speaks in Genesis, let there be light, light happens as God says the word. So word and action are one thing. And I think that's what we were striving for. We were creating that day something that brings us as close in alignment as a smart, well-informed group of spiritual people with strong opinions can ever come to all at once. And even though we didn't finish it, I do think we engaged it. And what I like about that community of communities is, when I first came here, and this was true of the churches I've served during the COVID time, it felt sometimes more like a collection of silos. Strong, firmly independent, functioning, but not necessarily in congruence with each other. And this is not unique to this church. This is a phenomenon that all of my colleagues who have worked during COVID have noticed, that churches became more hunkered down. We kept going, but we lost a little connection from not being in the same place, and we hadn't fully refined our tech skills. So it's not unusual. This was true of my church in Duluth. It was true in Foster City. It's true here that we were functioning more like independent agents rather than one group. But a community of communities, we've come out of that slowly, as have other communities, describes that we're a group of people that worships on Sunday and worships online on Sunday night and prays together on Wednesday mornings and Thursday nights, and that shares meals together and makes beautiful music together, and that not only serves a conventionally religious purpose, but we're home to a school, we're home to a scouting troop that models leadership, co-gendered, equal leadership for the future of our nation and for the world. Not religious in the conventional sense, though it has religious values embedded in it. There are many things that we do that I think we do together, and we do with one heart and one mind. Now, Reverend Terry said that what she felt we were struggling with, why we had trouble coming to one statement is, she said, well, your heart and your head were sometimes at odds with each other. Not what we're doing, but we had trouble articulating it. Sometimes we were speaking more from heart, sometimes more from head, and that's not a bad thing. What do we love about being Congregationalists, among other things? That God values our intellect, that it's okay to use your mind and your brain here, as well as your soul, your spirit, and your heart. But when it came to actually putting it into words, it was a little difficult. Here's what resulted from it. We had version 1 and version 2. And in the end, I would say fairly, it was about equally divided, and they're not that different from each other. Here's one. Door number 1. Congregational Church of Peninsula's mission is to build loving communities of acceptance and mutual support, grounded in our values, including spiritual growth, inclusiveness, and social action. Well, that's kind of cool. And the whole group voted on that. But then, given the opportunity to choose a second option, the majority of the group chose this. With faith as our guide, we create a community of acceptance and mutual support that shares our resources through acts of service, advocacy, education, and music. I think that's right. I'm leaving a word out, and I can't tell which one. But they're similar. One's a little less specifically religious, maybe, but they're both aspirational about what it means to be a community that's not defined by conformity, but that is characterized by unity. I think that is us. If you were to ask us, what do you believe, for example, some of us would be very comfortable in saying, I believe in one God, the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth, and reciting the words of the Nicene Creed. Others would say, I'd really rather not use religious language at all to describe who we are and why I'm here and what we're doing together. And there's a whole range in between. We also articulated some values: love, community service, social justice, social action, solace, inclusivity, and spiritual growth. So that's not an action statement, but it does describe where our hearts are. What are we doing? And then since that exercise, I've been just paying attention to how do we function. And you've seen those posters that are hanging around that describes our philanthropic giving, our giving to charity, to use an old-fashioned word, in 2024. They're on the back, they're in the restrooms. They depict our financial generosity. And I think that's another way of describing, well, who is the Congregational Church of the Peninsula? Where do we give ourselves away? And if you haven't looked at that statement, I want to make sure that we update it for 2025, because it's an even longer list if you put the groups together. And I want to urge you to stay after church and after coffee hour today, because one of our recipients from last year, Reverend Marlon Bussey, who's the pastor of St. James AME Zion Church in San Mateo, is coming over here after her service, as soon as she can get here. But the truth is, you might have to hang around for a half an hour. I told her, don't worry, I'll preach extra long. Kidding. Please stay till she comes, because she's going to talk about the foster home that they are building on the grounds of St. James Church. Not a foster home, it's an independent adult home for young people who are aging out of the foster system in San Mateo County. So at 18, the relationship of support, financially and socially, technically ends. And what they're finding is they can't stay in San Mateo County. They can't earn enough money. They can't even afford going to community college without some help. And in order to preserve this community of communities, St. James, which is on a very small piece of property, much smaller than ours, probably a fifth the size of ours, is building 4 units of housing for these young people who are aging out of foster care. So she's going to come here and talk about that with us, give us a progress report, and also we're considering making another donation to support it. So please stay if you can. It's another example of where we put our money is an expression of what we believe and who we are. We may not be so hot on saying the creed entirely, or a creed. There's also creeds for the United Church of Christ in the back of our hymn book, if you want to see them. I can show you later. But we do something. So how do we bring into congruence what we say, what we feel strongly about, and what we're doing? And how can we say that in a way that makes sense to somebody outside? I was talking to someone this week who was checking us out on our website. I'm very excited. I can't tell you exactly what it is yet for another week, but a speaker who will be coming here this fall. And the person I was speaking to is not very religious, but they loved our website because they said, it's so warm, inviting, and looks like a real community of people doing something. But what the heck is Micah 6? And it's a reference to a Bible verse that we use a lot here. What does God require of us but to do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with our God? But to a secular person, Micah 6 was like, what the heck is that? And this is a well-educated person who it just seemed weird. Not bad, just weird. And I value about us that we're trying to express as clearly in secular terms what we could more comfortably describe maybe in religious or spiritual terms. It means something to us. We want to be credible. We want to be understood. And we want people to understand, I don't think this is too much of a stretch, we're not like many churches. And I don't mean that in a superior way, because we're not probably all not that different. But what we stand for, what we believe, who's welcome here, it's not chance that we have on the portal of the church a rainbow flag with transgender stripes and also a Black Lives Matter banner. I wasn't here when either of those were put up, so I'm not even sure how the process came about. But that says as much, we hope, to people who are driving by as the cross on the fireplace outside the building. It says something. And so what we're engaged in right now as we put together our new bylaws is this attempt to state clearly, well, who are we? What do we want to be? Who do we want to be next? And this notion of community of communities, I think, really describes that. We're not just one group. We're not just religious people. We're not just here on Sunday. All those things are important to us, but we're many more. We give our resources and our stewardship of this building to the community to use. A person who works in the building for one of the other groups said that to me this week, that they'd never worked in a building before that felt so much like a hub for a community. And they're only here during the week for work. And I take that as a compliment. I hope you'll take it as the compliment that the person intended. So all that is to say, how does that speak to me, or how does that speak to us about the gospel today? I picked just a few verses. We've been working our way this summer through Luke, if that hasn't been apparent, the teachings of Jesus. So I do think that while we may not have agreement here about a religion about Jesus. Some have ideas, some don't. We do try to embody the religion of Jesus. What did he say? What did he do? And I actually believe that, and you know, I'm a deeply committed, disciplined Bible reader. I'm not that way about everything in my life, but I do read the Bible all the time. And what I try to listen for is, what is God saying to us today? How is God speaking to us here and now? That's a United Church of Christ trademark right now, a phrase that we have been using to describe ourselves. God is still speaking, not just through the Bible, but also through the Bible. And these words in today's gospel really spoke to me personally, I'll tell you why, but also it spoke to me about who we are as a church and this process that we're going through. So when Jesus, and I love how he begins this little section. Don't be afraid, little flock. It's not, hey, I'm the Son of God. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. It's a term of endearment that invites an intimate, listening, peer, collegial, friendship relationship. Jesus could be the first Congregationalist because he says not words of power or hierarchy, but he says, don't be afraid, little flock. And though it's a first century agrarian phrase, it still in the first century would have stood out that a spiritual teacher would be addressing the community in a term of intimate endearment. Little flock, we take care of each other. And how we are with each other is an indicator of what we believe. Fear not, little flock, he says. God has been pleased to give you the realm. And then he cuts right to it. There's like a few verses here. And in 3 or 4 verses, if you want a summation of what Jesus believed and how he tried to live his life. Sell your possessions and give to the poor. Provide purses for yourself that don't wear out. A treasure in heaven that will never fail. And then my favorite phrase, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. It's as much an invitation as it is also a description. It helps us see who we are as much as anything else. See, Satan is very active today, trying to get me to get off track, but I'm not going to. Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. It's as if Jesus were addressing us right now and saying, look, even if you're not sure how to articulate your creed or your doctrines, look at where you put your heart, and that will tell you who you are. Look at where you put your resources. That will tell you who you are. Look at how you use your building. Look at how you spend your money. Look at the ways that you are investing in young people in the church right now, which we are doing through our music program, through our education programs. That heart place is your treasure place, or where you put your treasures tells you where your heart is. And he cuts right to it. You know, we're a church that's blessed with material possessions, unusual to an unusual degree. Jesus says, sell what you have and give it away. Give it away. And I'm not saying that we should empty the endowment or sell the building, but I do think Jesus is saying to us, continue with your generous impulses. The more you give it away, the more you'll have. The more you don't hoard, the more you'll receive. Give stuff away if they become an impediment to you in experiencing community and love and justice. I don't think it's an either or, but it seems very efficient of Jesus, or what's the word I want to use? It's very precise. Look, if I can give you spiritual advice in just a few sentences, don't be encumbered by material possessions. The most important thing is your relationships. Now, I don't want to make this about me, but I will say that the sort of the cancer journey I've been on these last few months has been a real quick sort for me about what's important. Things, not so much. People, absolutely. Where is your treasure? That's where your heart is. I mean, it's uncharacteristic of me, but I have gotten rid of 50 banker boxes of books from my apartment. And it doesn't even look different. I mean, that's kind of the scary part, but it has helped me let go of stuff. Stuff that I loved, or stuff that I liked, that I had, but it's encumbering me right now. I want space. I want freedom. I want light. I want air. So I don't know what's happening, but I can hear it from here.
It's worth repeating.
I really don't know what to do about it. So maybe we turn off the microphone or something. All right. Does it matter if I use this one? Oh. Oh, it's Bob. I'm sorry. Bob, I'm so sorry. I truly am. I really am. So here's what I want to say. It's really important that we be open to what our hearts are telling us right now. Listen to your head, listen to your heart, and let that guide us as we make important decisions about our present and our future. I did want to say this, that the United Church of Christ met this summer for its gathering called Synod. We're part of the United Church of Christ. And it spoke very directly to something that's happening in the news right now. They passed a resolution, I have copies of it if you're interested, responding to the federal government attack on immigrants, migrants, and refugees. It's the statement that the United Church of Christ passed with perhaps one of the largest percentages in its history, in its 60, 70-year history now. And it's entreating us as a church to be sure to be using our treasure and our resources and our public witness to be an absolute, unquestionable solidarity with migrants, immigrants, people seeking asylum, refugees. It's rare that the United Church of Christ ever says anything as a group, but this summer it just said this. And it seems to me that it's connected to how we use our resources. Our church is very generous in support of migrant and immigrant rights, and I hope we will continue to be so. I don't think there's another church that, at least financially, is doing what we're doing right now. And I don't say that to make us proud. I say it to remind us and stretch us. Right now, our treasure is telling us that our heart is with migrants, our use of treasure. And the other solidarity piece that I want to lift up, that I believe is really important spiritually, is this. The situation of people who are transgender and non-binary continues to worsen each successive week. Next week, I'm preaching at a queer church in Tampa, Florida. Florida is a place where transgender and non-binary people have had severely restricted access to testosterone for the last year and a half. And in our own state, right here in the Bay Area as well as in Los Angeles, most hospitals and medical centers are ceasing entirely medical care that is gender affirming, however it's broadly defined. Also, the severe restrictions on Planned Parenthood and other agencies that are providing care for people. These are places where we need to put our treasure and to demonstrate where our heart is. even though it's not popular. I just read this book, The Lilac People by Milo Todd. It's a novel about transgender people who were in concentration camps in Germany through the 1930s and 40s, and what happened to them at the end of the war. I'm so embarrassed to say, and I didn't know this until I read this, at least in this detail, that what the United States and the other allied governments did was to not release the transgender and homosexual people who had been incarcerated, but to make them serve out prison terms, even though they let everyone else out. But this novel, which I commend to you, this is the part that spoke to me directly about where is my heart right now. Several of them are talking in 1945, trying to figure out how to escape continued imprisonment. And this is what sort of a famous figure from the 1930s, Dr. Magnus Hirschfeld, says to them. A country is only as strong as its most vulnerable people. And you, if you may forgive me for saying, are on the lowest rung of the ladder. He's speaking to a group of transgender people. You're a canary, Bertie. Transgender people are the canaries of the world. You know from our own library that bad people always go after transgender people first, no matter what country or culture. They are the first ones removed when an environment turns poisonous. What makes it more worrisome is you represent everything. You represent housing and job security and access to health care. You represent workers' rights and voting rights and full stomachs and freedom. And perhaps most importantly of all, you represent the right to body and personhood. You represent a country not owning you, not using you however benefits a select few at the top. You represent a country of a people, not a country of the dominant. If transgenders are under attack, then the whole of the country is on the brink of destruction. If transgender people are cared for, the rest of us are cared for. You touch everything a strong society has to offer. We could work, we could eat, we could be healthy, we could live in safe homes, we could decline to fight in unnecessary wars. Our country would be honest. We would no longer be tricked. Our country would take care of us, and we, in turn, would take care of our country. So as long as transgender people are okay, we know society is too. That's why I'm here for you, Bertie, because I love my country. So this is describing 1945, post-war Germany, but it could be speaking to us right now. Last week, the administration decided to revoke previously granted retirement benefits for the transgender service members who are being forced to leave the military at this time, after many years of service, 15, 18, more. Not only are they being discharged dishonorably, though they enlisted honorably, they're losing their retirement benefits and pension. I believe Jesus is calling us to pay attention to this and not hide behind, we can't do anything. It's beyond us. It's beyond our capacity. A community of communities embraces the most vulnerable among us. And right now, migrants, immigrants, transgender people are those people. So that's what I offer up to you today. Pray the words of Jesus this week, every day. Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. And see how it speaks to you, how Jesus speaks to you, how God speaks to you, about how we can continue to grow as a community of communities. Amen. Let's sing, O God of Bethel, by whose hand, connecting us again to our Congregationalist past.